As a beta, I suddenly caught the scent of my aloof alpha roommate's pheromones. Even worse, I started developing a dependency on them. When he wasn't in the dorm, I'd get so antsy I'd resort to secretly sniffing his clothes. As the dependency grew stronger, I cautiously brought it up with him. Could you maybe suppress your pheromones in the dorm? My roommate's eyes darkened. You can smell them? I nodded. He slowly closed in on me. So, does that mean you can be marked? I was late for college move-in, and all the beds for my major were taken, so I ended up in a 2-person overflow dorm. I knew my roommate was an alpha, but seeing his sheer size in person really drove home what alpha genetics were all about. I'm 5'11", but he was pushing 6'3". Hey man, you're tall. I tried to be friendly, but the guy just gave me a bland look and went back to making his bed. What's his deal? I scoffed and climbed onto my own bunk to get settled. My eyes fell on the name card taped to his bed. His name was Alex, an AI major. I'm in software engineering. We're in the same department, so we saw each other a lot during freshman orientation. He never once said hi to me. After trying to be friendly and getting the cold shoulder a few times, I stopped bothering. My buddy Chris threw an arm around my shoulder. Leo, isn't that your roommate? Don't even talk about him. The guy's a total jerk. I started complaining. It's been a week since school started, and I don't think he's said more than 3 sentences to me. Chris took off his orientation cap. That's just how alphas are. I don't know what gives them such a superiority complex all the time. Chris and I each grabbed a bowl of ramen and found a place to sit. I was totally absorbed in my food when Chris suddenly got excited. Leo, quick! Look behind you. Someone's confessing their feelings. What? There was no way I was missing this. I dropped my chopsticks and turned around. At first, all I saw was a huge crowd of people. I had to stand on my toes to see what was happening. In the middle of the circle was Alex. He was calmly eating his rice while a very pretty omega stood in front of him. The omega was blushing, confessing to him while clutching a love letter in a black envelope. Looks like this omega did their homework. Alex's sheets, comforter, and all his stuff were black. My side of the room was a riot of color, while his was a black hole. Sometimes I wondered if he ever got visual fatigue. Amid the whooping from the crowd, Alex finished his last bite of rice, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and stood up. Excuse me, please let me through. The entire crowd went silent. I was stunned. So it wasn't just me he was cold to. He was like that with everyone. When I got back to the dorm after orientation, it was pitch black. I was dying from the heat, so I blasted the AC and headed straight for the bathroom. The second I opened the door, the blinding light nearly seared my retinas. Damn it, Alex, he forgot to turn off the light, I mumbled instinctively. I squinted, and the scene in front of me made me want to crawl into a hole and disappear. Alex looked like he had just gotten out of the shower. Water dripped from his chin, trickling down his chest and further down. Damn. Was it even possible for a guy to be that big? Get out. Snapping out of my shock, I tried to act cool. Sorry, I thought no one was in here. I calmly backed out and immediately squatted down, clutching my head in my hands. So awkward, so humiliating. More importantly, my pride as a man had just taken a serious hit. Before I could figure out a strategy for facing him, Alex walked out calmly with a towel wrapped around his waist and glanced at me. I immediately looked down to avoid his eyes. I didn't expect him to be the one to break the tension. You can go shower now. I promise I won't barge in. Break the tension? More like rub it in my face. I snuck a peek at him before going into the bathroom and noticed his ears were a little red. I gave him a confused look. Didn't he just shower? Was it really that hot? It was a blessing in disguise, though. The incident genuinely thawed the ice between us. He was still a bit aloof when I talked to him, but at least he'd actually respond now. My conversation starters were completely random. The pork knuckle noodles at the dining hall are amazing. Alex, holding a book, would reply without even looking up. Heard. The quiet days passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, the month-long orientation was over. The only evidence of the time that had passed was my slightly darker tan. One day, I was taking a nap in my bed when I caught a very faint scent of mint. I looked around. He wasn't chewing gum, and there were no mint plants on the windowsill. I scratched my head and figured I was just imagining things. But the next day, the minty smell was clearer. The fresh scent tickled my nose, and whenever I smelled it, I felt a strange sense of comfort and contentment. It even calmed my restless summer mood. The moment I left the dorm, the smell vanished, and I immediately felt hot and stuffy. Sweat started rolling down my forehead. Chris looked surprised. "Are you that hot?" I fanned myself with my hand. "Aren't you?" Chris pointed to the stand-up AC unit in the classroom. "The 72 degrees in here." I paused. Maybe it's just the dry weather lately. The second I walked back into the dorm with a popsicle, a strong wave of mint hit me. I followed the scent to its source. It was Alex sitting on his chair. Within a minute, my skin stopped sweating, and I even felt a little cool. What was going on? I pondered this as I chewed on my popsicle. I saw that Alex wasn't wearing his suppression bracelet, and a ridiculous thought popped into my head. As a beta, I was smelling an alpha's pheromones. To be more precise, I could only smell Alex's pheromones. While I was zoning out, Alex reminded me, "Your popsicle is about to melt." I looked down and saw melted ice cream dripping down my hand. I scrambled for a wet wipe on the desk, but it was hard with one hand. Alex handed me a few tissues. "Here, thanks." I didn't have time for anything else and just started wiping the sticky mess off my hand. But then Alex knelt down and started wiping the milky white drips off the floor with a tissue. I was genuinely touched. My aloof roommate was finally acting like a human being. That night, I lay in bed, determined to verify my suspicion. I created a new account, changed my secondary gender to Omega, and infiltrated their ranks. On the Omega forums, Alex was a hot topic. There was even one thread with over 3,000 replies. I typed out a new post and hit send. Kitten kisses. "Hey fellow O's, does anyone know what Alex's pheromones smell like? I'm so curious." I waited for 10 minutes, but no one replied, though the view count kept climbing. After staring at the screen for a few more minutes, I couldn't fight off sleep any longer and drifted off. The next day, I woke up from the heat. Felt like a fire was raging inside me, burning me up. I irritably jumped out of bed to turn down the AC. But when I looked, the thermostat was already set to 60 degrees. My heavy, ragged breaths filled the quiet dorm room. Alex had a meeting today. What a coincidence. The moment Alex is gone, I feel like I'm burning alive. When he's here, I'm perfectly fine. I quickly opened my phone and found my post. Someone had replied. "I know this one. Alex's pheromones smell like mint. It's over." I could really smell an alpha's pheromones. I was so hot I could barely stand it. Acting on some strange impulse, I opened Alex's closet. The moment the faint scent of mint hit me, my agitation seemed to melt away. I stood in front of his closet as if I'd been struck by lightning. It's even moreover, I think I'm addicted to his pheromones. Before I could even process the shock, my body started heating up again. Clearly, just standing outside his closet wasn't enough anymore. I reached out, my hand hovering over his neatly folded clothes. Suddenly, I snapped back to reality and quickly retracted my hand. He's not here, and I'm secretly touching his clothes. How much more of a pervert could I be? I forced my eyes away from the clothes that emanated such an intoxicating scent and slammed the closet door shut. I lay on my bed, my whole body burning up. One word: endure. A whimper escaped my lips. Wait, why did that sound so lewd? If Alex heard that, my reputation as a straight beta would be shot. At that thought, I grabbed the hem of my shirt and bit down on it. The fan on the ceiling above my bed whirred at top speed, and the AC was cranked to its lowest setting. I don't know how long I managed to hold out. My mind started to wander. It's fine, just one touch. Just a light touch. Alex will never find out. I talked myself into it as I got out of bed and walked toward his closet. Opening the door, I steeled myself and grabbed his jacket. Instantly, an indescribable jolt of pleasure shot from my fingertips and coursed through every corner of my body. Finally, it reached the top of my head. The pleasure was so intense it made my scalp tingle. At the same time, the shame of secretly touching his clothes surfaced. and without me realizing it, my cheeks were already flushed crimson. "What are you doing?" A deep male voice whispered right next to my ear, each word crystal clear. It was Alex. He had come in at some point without me noticing. I froze, my neck so stiff I didn't dare turn my head. "It's over. This is it. It's all over. Is he going to think I'm a thief?" I checked the time before I got out of bed. There should have been another half hour before his meeting was over. How did he get back so fast? Did it end early? My brain short-circuited for a few seconds before slowly starting to reboot. I shakily turned my head and met Alex's gaze. It was hot outside, and the hair on his forehead was damp with sweat, making his dark, moist eyes seem even brighter. When I didn't answer, he asked again, "You like this jacket?" I shook my head instinctively but couldn't come up with another excuse. I was so flustered I was about to panic when an idea struck me. I said, trying to look embarrassed, "Sorry, I opened the wrong closet." I let go of the jacket and tried to smooth things over. "The heat's making me stupid." Alex's eyes were dark. He nodded at my words, his gaze sweeping over my face. "Yeah, you do look pretty flushed." It would have been better if he hadn't said anything. The memory of what I'd just done flooded my mind, and my face turned an even deeper shade of red. We both sat down. But after waiting for a while, Alex still hadn't taken off the suppression bracelet on his wrist. It looked like he'd changed into fresh clothes today, without a trace of mint on them. Between that and the bracelet, I couldn't get a single whiff of his pheromones. My pores opened up, and sweat started pouring out of me. Having tasted that blissful touch, being thrown back into this dry spell was like winning the lottery only to find out it was all a dream. After thinking for a moment, I quietly moved closer to him. "Alex, did you wash yesterday's clothes?" "Not yet." Alex looked up. "Why?" I was ecstatic on the inside but kept a calm facade. "Would you mind if I threw my stuff in with yours? I only have 2 things and it feels like a waste to run the machine just for that." Alex stared at me for 2 seconds. "I don't mind." I grabbed a basin and walked over to his laundry hamper. As I knelt down, the mouth-watering scent hit me, and I took a deep breath. The cool mint filled my lungs. I kept inhaling as I carried the clothes downstairs, completely oblivious to Alex watching me from behind. Once I had my fill, I reluctantly put the clothes into the washing machine. Afterward, I squatted on the floor and let out a long sigh. What is wrong with me? I need to make a doctor's appointment this weekend. My peaceful life has been completely turned upside down, and it's all tied to my aloof roommate. As I was thinking this, I was about to pour in the laundry detergent when I realized I'd forgotten to bring it. I stood there speechless for 3 seconds. Just as I was about to turn and go get it, a hand reached out from beside my head, and a pleasant voice came from behind me. "I saw you forgot this, so I followed you down." I couldn't even hear what he was saying. All my attention was focused on my right shoulder, where he was touching me. My dependency on his pheromones was instantly triggered. I swallowed hard, trying to suppress the wicked thoughts in my mind. I want to hug him, to press myself against him. Right now, I felt like I was alone in a barren desert, and Alex was the only person who could give me water. "Leo?" Alex tapped my shoulder. I snapped back to reality. "Huh? Zoning out?" "Yeah." My gaze drifted uncontrollably to his ruby-red lips. Is the mint scent stronger there? As if my soul was being pulled along, I lost all reason and leaned in to kiss him. Just as our lips were about to touch, Alex placed his fingertips on my forehead, tilting his head back to create some distance between us. "You want to kiss me?" I nodded without a second thought. Then I froze. My wandering soul gradually returned to my body. Thinking about what I had just tried to do, I shivered in fear. Is this the power of pheromones? They can even override a person's sanity. I can't wait for the weekend. I need to go to the hospital today. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Why do you want to kiss me?" I was at a loss for words. Alex seemed to understand something. A slight smile played on his lips. "You like me?" I shook my head frantically, so fast that I almost choked on my own spit. "No, of course not." The smile on Alex's face vanished in an instant. "So what were you trying to do just now?" I stammered for a while before finally, hesitantly, telling him the truth. Alex, I think I can smell your pheromones. Alex didn't seem surprised at all. In fact, he was quite calm. And there was a hint of seduction in his tone. I found it hard to say, but I managed. I think I'm becoming dependent on your pheromones. It sounded completely absurd. If it weren't happening to me, I would never in a million years have believed it. Alex smoothly accepted this ridiculous fact. How so? I closed my eyes and confessed everything. I want to smell them. He looked down at me, his thin lips parting. Just smell? I want to touch you, to kiss you. As the words left my mouth, the craving for his pheromones overwhelmed my reason, and I closed my eyes and kissed him. The sensation was so intense that I couldn't handle more than a couple of seconds before pulling away. The whole time, Alex just stood there, unmoving. I was miserable. I'm sorry. It just happened again. Suddenly, a wave of pheromones hit me. My legs went weak, and I started to crumple to the ground, but Alex caught me. His large hand clamped firmly around my waist, pressing me tightly against his chest. Just a little bit of pheromones and your legs turn to jelly? That's sensitive? Being this close to him felt like an electric shock running through my entire body. Now, it wasn't just my legs that were weak, even my fingers were trembling uncontrollably. When I looked up again, the person in front of me was a blurry haze. So, theoretically, you could be marked? Alex reached out his thumb and wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye. I blinked in shock, forcing the tears back. How is that possible? I'm a beta. The gland on my neck can't store pheromones. Alex's hand suddenly shot up to caress the back of my neck, and I almost collapsed to my knees again. If this keeps up, I'm completely done for. His pull on me was too fatal. Alex, are you free today? I am. Why? I hesitated. Can you come with me to the hospital this afternoon? I want to get it checked out. Maybe it can be cured. I don't know if it was my imagination, but I thought his expression grew colder. Sure. I let out a breath. So my aloof roommate was actually a warm-hearted person under a cold exterior. If I just went in and claimed I could smell an alpha's pheromones, something that goes against all biological knowledge, they'd probably recommend I see a psychiatrist. But if I brought Alex with me, there'd be a bit more hope, a better chance of figuring this out. The diagnosis was not what I'd hoped for. The condition is called beta pheromone deficiency syndrome, the doctor said, pushing up his glasses. There's only ever been one other recorded case in the world. I was frustrated, but I never showed any signs of this for the first 18 years of my life. How come it only appeared after I met Alex? The doctor pointed at Alex. For the first 18 years, your gland was dormant. His pheromones woke it up. From now on, you will only ever be able to smell his pheromones. I fell silent. Living with Alex in college was one thing. When I had an episode, I could find him for relief. But what about after graduation when he's not around? The thought of that unbearable, burning heat made me frown so hard I could probably crush a fly between my eyebrows. I just have to tough it out. I held onto a sliver of hope. Is there any cure? The doctor's words extinguished that hope. No, you can only rely on yourself to slowly wean off of it. With the lack of clinical experience, no one knew if weaning would even be successful. I just had to give it a shot. Into the silence, Alex spoke up. Can he be marked? Dude, are you serious? How can I, a beta, be marked? I turned to look at him. He had asked the same question back on campus, and now he was asking for confirmation again. Why was he so obsessed with this question? He doesn't think I'm some kind of freak, does he? Theoretically, yes, the doctor said. It's just that the mark won't last as long as it would on an omega. Okay, thanks. Alex's eyes lifted, and he actually seemed to be in a good mood. Ready to head back to campus? I hung my head. Yeah, let's go. The moment we got back to the dorm, Alex took off his suppression bracelet, generously releasing his pheromones. The room instantly smelled like it was filled with mint plants. My firm resolve to wean myself off collapsed the second I smelled the mint. Smelled so good. Intoxicating. I quietly turned my head, studying him with a curious gaze. Could this guy's pheromones be made from some new kind of drug? Perhaps my stare was too intense. because Alex turned and met my eyes. He even asked considerately, "Is it not enough?" At the same time, the concentration of pheromones in the air doubled. Caught off guard, a sigh of pleasure escaped me. The sound hung in the air, and we both fell silent. I wanted nothing more than to bury my head in my chest like an ostrich. I was filled with regret. How could I make a sound like that? That sounded nice. My head shot up, a giant question mark appearing above it. Don't mess with me. Even though I consider myself a straight guy, I'm a sucker for a handsome face. I was already struggling to resist Alex's good looks. If he showed even the slightest bit of interest in me, it would only be a matter of time before I fell for him. After that, I became extremely vigilant, terrified he would turn me gay. Compared to my overthinking, Alex was completely relaxed and laid back. "I'm free today. Let's go eat together." I replied, "Okay." After I came clean about my condition, I went out to eat with Chris one day. At first, I didn't feel anything. Could I be cured? Just as I was secretly celebrating, a fire seemed to ignite within me, scorching all my internal organs. "You're sweating a lot." Chris kindly handed me a tissue. I gripped the hem of my shirt tightly, trying my best to endure it. Within a minute, I was utterly defeated and bolted for the restroom. I splashed cold water on my clothes and skin, but it barely did anything. I had no choice but to call Alex. The phone was answered on the first ring. "Hello, Leo." "Alex." The moment I heard his voice, I felt a wave of self-pity and complained, "I'm having an episode. Can you come over?" Location. My hand trembled as I sent him my location. Alex's voice was hoarse. "I'm nearby. Give me 10 minutes. Okay." After hanging up, I squatted on the floor, completely drained of energy. I could hear Chris's worried voice from outside the door. "Leo, how are you doing? Are you sick somewhere? Do you need to go to the hospital?" "I'm fine," I told Chris, telling him to go on ahead. Otherwise, when Alex showed up, I'd never be able to explain myself. Alex arrived in less than 10 minutes. He pushed the door open and saw me squatting in the corner. He pulled me up, and the scent of mint immediately enveloped me. "Let's get out of here first." Alex took off his jacket and draped it over me. The scent of his pheromones filled my nose. This episode was worse than any before. Just smelling and touching his jacket wasn't enough to calm the storm inside me anymore. I desperately wanted more. Alex noticed my condition too. After weighing our options, we went to the stairwell. It was empty, and our breathing sounded amplified, echoing clearly in the space. Alex's Adam's apple bobbed. "Still feeling bad?" I clung to him. "Yeah." Alex tilted my chin up, forcing me to look at him. "Is this okay?" Those 3 words were out of context, but I understood what he meant. I nodded. Alex lowered his head and kissed me. As our lips and tongues intertwined, I lost my balance several times and almost fell, my legs giving out. Luckily, Alex was quick and held me securely in his arms. Once I had calmed down, I returned to the hot pot restaurant wearing Alex's jacket. He said he needed to use the restroom. Chris was confused. "You went out for a minute and came back with a different jacket?" I made something up. Ran into a classmate. He asked me to take it back to campus for him. Chris was skeptical. He then asked, "Why are your lips so swollen?" I put a piece of cooked beef in his bowl. "It's nothing. Just too spicy." Chris was simple-minded and easy to fool. After dinner with Alex, we returned to the dorm. I took a quick shower, and when I came out, the fresh minty air was tinged with a violent, restless edge. I frowned, feeling a little uncomfortable. The curtains were drawn tight, making the room dim. "Alex," I whispered, "are you in here?" "I'm here." His voice was raspy as if he was holding something back. My rut just hit. I stopped in my tracks, my first instinct to turn and run. I hadn't had much interaction with alphas, but I knew a little about their ruts. During this time, even their omega partners had to keep their distance because you never knew when they might lose control. But I'm a beta, so it should be fine. Besides, ever since he found out about my condition, he's been providing me with his pheromones for free. Now that he needs someone, my conscience wouldn't let me back down. I shakily lifted a corner of his bed curtain. "How are you doing?" Alex wasn't lying down. He was sitting cross-legged on the bed, his eyes dark and filled with undisguised aggression. The veins on his forehead bulged, covered in a cold sweat. Beads of sweat glistened and disappeared in the dim light. "Not great. Are you scared?" I was terrified, but I shook my head, lying against my instincts. Alex's sharp, probing gaze roamed over my body, from top to bottom, then back up again. For some reason, my gland, which had been completely unnoticeable until now, gave a tiny throb. When I tried to feel it again, it was back to normal. "You should go to sleep. I'll stay with you." I didn't dare to meet his eyes. I felt like his gaze wasn't his own. It was like a tiger, poised to strike, ready to tear me apart and devour me in the next second. Alex stayed curled up on his bed. "Can you get me a glass of water?" I quickly poured some water, then tapped on his bed frame to signal for him to take the cup. Instead, Alex pulled back the curtain and leaned out. As he got closer, I could hear his suppressed breathing. It was rapid and heavy. I was a little worried about him and was about to ask if he needed to go to the infirmary when he suddenly grabbed my hand. Alex held my hand tightly. "I've lent you so many of my pheromones. Can you help me out?" I don't have any pheromones." Alex ignored me, his hand moving straight to the back of my neck. He found the small bump of my gland and pressed on it. "You do." I instinctively flinched. "Then, how can I help you?" His pheromones were raging and unstable, which made me feel awful too. A heat wave, influenced by his state, swept through my body. I suddenly realized that my dependency on his pheromones had reached a dangerous level. I could be easily affected by his emotions. If I didn't start weaning myself off soon, I was finished. But when I looked up and saw the possessive look in Alex's eyes, I didn't dare bring up the topic of weaning. If I brought it up now, I couldn't imagine what would happen if I angered an alpha. Alex swung himself off the bed in a few swift movements. The air grew heavy with an oppressive feeling as he slowly approached me. His presence was intimidating, but his words were gentle. "Please, Leo, can I just smell you?" As if afraid I would refuse, he added, "Just like you smell me." I had no choice but to nod. I couldn't see what Alex was doing. I could only feel a sudden puff of hot air on my exposed gland. A shiver ran down my spine. Alex was true to his word. He really just smelled my pheromones. Before he lost control, he voluntarily went to the school infirmary to be isolated. I visited him many times while he was there, not because he missed me, but because I couldn't be without him. "Leo, you visit him like 5 or 6 times a day. Do you have that much free time?" Chris asked, panting from the heat. I was too embarrassed to tell him about my dependency on Alex's pheromones. It was a hard thing to admit. I lied, "We're roommates. We should help each other out." Chris scoffed and joked, "Anyone who knows you knows you're roommates. Anyone who doesn't would think you're a couple." I stumbled. I asked the doctor. She said, "You can come out tonight." I held an iced fruit juice in one hand and held Alex's hand with the other. During the few days Alex was in isolation, I had been secretly trying to wean myself off. Whenever I absolutely couldn't take it anymore, I would go find Alex, and he would habitually extend a hand for me to hold. I'd gone from being able to last 5 minutes away from his pheromones to 2 hours. At this rate, the next step would be 4 hours, then 6, then 8. If all went well, I would be successfully weaned off soon. This foolproof plan was shattered on the very first day Alex returned to the dorm. He didn't know about my weaning efforts, so his pheromones flooded the room, arrogant and unrestrained. The burning heat that I had managed to suppress immediately reawakened, and my cells began to crazily absorb the scent again. I finally understood. Desire can be infinitely amplified. The more pheromones there were, the stronger my dependency became. The fewer pheromones, the weaker my dependency would get. Seeing all my previous efforts about to go down the drain, I tactfully suggested to Alex, "Could you maybe suppress your pheromones when you're in the dorm?" The words made me sound like a total jerk, like a scumbag who uses someone and then dumps them. After all, I was the one who had begged him to release his pheromones in the first place. Sure enough, The corners of Alex's mouth turned down, and he asked with a cold face, "Tired of me?" I shook my head. Alex understood. "Found someone new? What do their pheromones smell like? Is their rank higher than mine? Do they smell better than me?" The barrage of questions left my head spinning. Then, I distinctly felt the mint scent in the air gradually fade. He deftly fastened his suppression bracelet. "Don't worry. I won't release the pheromones you hate anymore." It was only then that I realized Alex was angry. I didn't have time to answer his earlier questions, so I just addressed the most recent one. "I don't hate them," I said, explaining my plan. "I want to break my dependency on you." Alex kept his head down, a low-pressure system forming around him. "The dependency is too severe. I can't even last a little while away from you," I said, frustrated. "It's not even long enough to eat a meal." Alex looked up and shot back, "And that's not a good thing?" I was confused. "How is that good?" "I think it's great," Alex said, a dark look in his eyes. "You can't leave me." I didn't read too deeply into his words. "But I'll be so much trouble for you." "I don't find it troublesome," Alex said stubbornly. "But I do." We went back and forth, almost getting into a fight, when someone's phone rang. I pulled out my phone. It was silent. Across from me, Alex answered his phone with a displeased look on his face. The person on the other end said a bunch of things. Alex replied with a curt then put on his jacket and stormed out, slamming the door. I was completely baffled. An alpha's heart is a deep, dark ocean. Are you kidding me? If I don't keep my distance from Alex, I'm afraid one day I'll lose control and just pounce on him and start licking him. His face is exactly my type. At some point, I had already developed feelings for him. Remembering the poor Omega who got brutally rejected at the beginning of the semester, my teeth chattered. He rejected such a beautiful Omega. He's probably straight. I absolutely cannot let the potentially homophobic Alex discover my secret crush on him. Otherwise, I won't even be able to get a whiff of his pheromones. Alex hadn't returned even half an hour after the dorm curfew. He probably wasn't coming back tonight. Suddenly, I started to worry. My longest record for weaning off him was only 2 hours. If he didn't come back all night, I was definitely going to have an episode. After thinking it over, I sneakily got out of bed and sat in Alex's chair, greedily inhaling the minty scent. We've held hands. We've kissed. Sitting in his chair should be fine, right? Maybe it was because of the pheromones Alex released earlier, but my weaning progress seemed to be completely useless. After just 5 minutes, I collapsed, weak and uncomfortable. 10 minutes later, I was desperately opening Alex's closet. 15 minutes later, my trembling fingertips clutched his clothes. Damn it, I cursed through gritted teeth. How am I going to get through the night without Alex? Am I going to die from this heat? My consciousness was hazy when the door opened, and a faint scent of mint drifted in. It was Alex. He knelt in front of me. "Why didn't you go find your new flame?" His words were sarcastic, but his actions were to hold me and gently pat my back. "The hell?" I suppressed a groan. "What new flame?" Alex turned his head, his lips brushing against my ear. "You really don't have one?" At that moment, I wanted to hit him. "Didn't the doctor say I can only smell you?" I said menacingly. "And they call Alex a top student. With a memory that bad, I wonder how many all-nighters he had to pull to get those grades." Alex let out a low chuckle. "Why so grumpy? You did this on purpose, didn't you?" I thought back. It was half an hour past curfew. No one should have been able to get in. For Alex to appear now could only mean one thing. He had been back for a while, just waiting outside the door without coming in. "Yes," Alex admitted freely. I was starting to get angry. "Is it fun messing with me?" "No, it's not fun." Just as I was about to retort, I heard him say, "It hurt my heart." My anger fizzled out. I stood frozen, my brain working at high speed to process the meaning of his words. Alex knelt on one knee, his hands wrapped around me. "I want you to be trouble for me." My heart started beating faster, as if an answer was about to reveal itself. I heard myself say, "But I'm afraid you'll get tired of me." "I won't," Alex said earnestly. "I like you, so I love that you depend on me." He likes me. The drop-dead gorgeous, golden boy alpha likes me. A beta with nothing to offer but my face. What do you like about me? A lot of things, Alex said, his eyes full of affection. I didn't feel anything for you at first, but I couldn't help but notice you. I still didn't quite believe him. Alex seemed to read my mind. This isn't just a whim. Give me time and I'll prove it to you. Okay? I felt like I was in a dream, none of it felt real. Okay. Seeing that I had agreed, Alex said slowly, since we're a couple now, it's not too much to ask for me to mark you, right? This was a no-go. Alex ignored my shaking head, bent down, and bit into my barren gland, injecting a potent dose of mint. My body spasmed uncontrollably as tears streamed down my face. An indescribable pleasure made my scalp tingle, so numb I couldn't think. Alex slowly, deliberately, ground his teeth. It was as if he wanted to bite all the way through, to permanently brand my gland with his scent. Stop! After I cried out several times, Alex finally let me go, completely satisfied. Who says a beta can't be marked? He shrugged. You just have to go deep enough. That didn't sound quite right, but my brain was so stimulated by his pheromones that I couldn't process it. Alex knew I wasn't like an omega, so every time the pheromones started to fade, Alex would give me another bite to ensure I was constantly enveloped in his scent. It was just the two of us in the dorm. Alex grew bolder and bolder, even insisting on holding me as we slept. After getting together with Alex, we were inseparable. At the same time, I could feel my dependency growing infinitely stronger. I needed to wean myself off or I would never be independent. I told Alex the truth, my voice lacking confidence. Is it okay? We should keep our distance from now on. Alex reluctantly agreed. Looking at him, you'd think he was the one who needed to be weaned off. When I went to class, I didn't wear Alex's clothes, nor did I ask him for a mark on my gland. I just grabbed a small fan and went with Chris. I felt like a warrior marching off to a battle I might not return from. Chris was even more confused now. Why are you carrying a fan in the winter? Are you running that hot now? Chris whispered. What supplements are you taking? Can you recommend some? I lied without blinking. Red dates. A few minutes into the class, I couldn't stand it anymore and turned on the fan. The cool breeze hit my face, neutralizing the intense heat. Chris looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. Other people in the class also threw me confused looks. I couldn't be bothered to explain, nor did I have the energy to. I bit my finger and whimpered silently. The bell rang for the end of class, and I shot out of there like my feet were on fire. Alex had class on the floor above. Just as I rushed out, a strong force pulled me aside, and I fell into a warm, familiar embrace. Chris, who had followed me out, stood there, jaw dropped. Leo, you're dating someone, and your boyfriend is the campus heartthrob. A picture of that moment was posted on the campus forum that day. Omegas cried their hearts out over their lost love. Alex is the ultimate dreamboat for us Omegas. How is he just taken? Such a shame. His high-level pheromones won't be passed down. To the person above, I heard betas can also get pregnant. A bunch of beta girls and guys also lamented their heartbreak. Such a handsome beta guy is dating an alpha guy. What are we beta girls supposed to do now? Hold on, is it possible that Leo is also really popular among beta guys? The person most affected was Chris. He looked completely constipated. When did you two get together? I thought for a moment. About 6 months ago. Chris's world shattered. So you let me complain about Alex for 6 months? Pretty much. Chris thought my relationship with Alex was terrible. He was always online, and he would tell me every detail about every girl who confessed to Alex and got rejected. He would always end with the comment, "Alphas are so pretentious." I couldn't help but laugh seeing Chris so flustered. I tried to tell you several times, but you were the one who said it. Said what? Whenever I'd say the name Alex, you'd say, "Shut up, I don't want to hear about any alphas." After a month of trying to wean myself off, I hadn't made much progress. In other words, whenever I made a little headway, the moment Alex and I kissed or did anything more intimate, all my previous efforts were completely undone. Even worse, winter break was coming up. "I'm not going home," Alex stated simply. "I'll live near your house." "How can you do that?" I frowned. It's the holidays. You can't just not go home. Alex thought for a moment. Then my whole family will move near your house. He continued. My parents know about your situation. They support my decision. For real? I asked skeptically. Don't your parents have any problem with me being a beta? Alex booked 2 plane tickets. None. Before this, I was basically asexual. I was planning on being a bachelor for life. And just like that, Alex moved into the apartment building across from mine. Every day, I had to run outside an average of 5 or 6 times, each time for a kiss. One day, I was passionately making out with Alex when a familiar woman's voice called out, Leo. Of course, it was familiar. It was my mom. I quickly let go of Alex and signaled for him to run. The moment Alex got my signal, my mom grabbed him. She studied him carefully, and as she looked, her eyes started to sparkle. Such a handsome alpha? My mom shot me a disgusted look and said to Alex, How did Leo ever land you? What's her deal? Look, my mom said, pulling Alex back to our house. While we were sitting down to eat and chat, my mom managed to get the whole story of our weird situation out of us. A dependency? My dad said, smacking his lips. I feel like I've heard that somewhere before. Just then, the voice of a reporter on the TV news channel came on. In the US, the only beta man with beta pheromone deficiency syndrome held a wedding of the century with his alpha partner today. The whole family turned to look at the screen. It said that the two of them tried everything to cure the condition, but in the end, they both walked down the aisle. In response, netizens have dubbed this wedding "You are my one and only." As if on cue, I turned my head and met Alex's eyes. A sense of peace washed over me. Weaning off him, I'll just let it be. Right now, the most important thing is to cherish the person in front of me.